and welcome back to another Aster 2 video. Uh, Today I'm gonna be talking about my experience going to the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl parade. So if you didn't know, the Seahawks recently won the Super Bowl, and on Wednesday they held a parade to celebrate the Super Bowl as every Super Bowl winner in modern history has. Uh, So I was able to go there because I live fairly close to Seattle, and it was a pretty cool experience. So let me tell you about it. So first up, I had to wake up at 4:30 to get there. So I got up really early to get there, and I was super tired. And then we had to drive down to uh Lakewood, I believe it was. And there we caught a train that brought us down to Seattle. So we had to take public transportation, obviously, because Seattle's parking is very difficult to find, and even if you can find some, it's going to be really expensive. And also, you're going to have to pay for all of that gas to drive up there, and it really isn't worth it to take a car. Instead, take public transportation. And getting onto the train actually was pretty smooth. There weren't very long lines, uh, and we just got straight onto the train. We got there at the perfect time, as right before the train was about to leave. So we didn't have to wait that long for a train to arrive or anything like that. So getting there was pretty smooth, and we were all excited for the Super Bowl parade. Uh, and as we were riding on the train, there were a bunch of other people wearing Seahawks gear getting on the train, and you could tell that those people were going to the Seahawks parade. Uh, so yeah, we made it to Seattle, and we made it to Seattle at about six, uh, about 6:30, I think it was. So it was still really early. Uh, and we went up and we went to the place where the parade was going to take place, and there weren't a lot of people there, honestly. There were just people who arrived there just a little bit ago or who stayed overnight, and there was maybe a solid line of people in most places, and some places there were no people, so there weren't that many people. And we obviously didn't want to get into the line, I guess that you might call it, or the crowd that early, because uh then we would just be standing there for 5 hours because the parade starts at 11. So first thing we did was we went to Starbucks because they were giving out these little Seahawks signs. I even have one right over here. Uh, if you can see that. And then it has its little Starbucks logo on the back. So yeah, they were giving those out at select locations to people who bought drinks and stuff like that. So we went down to one of the Starbucks that was participating, and it was pretty packed. I don't know how many of those people were just regulars who go to Starbucks, or people who us wanted to get a Seahawks sign, or just Seahawks fans who wanted a cup of coffee. Uh, but yeah, there I got a cup of hot chocolate, and uh, honestly, the cup of hot chocolate, it was pretty expensive, and it was not the best cup of hot chocolate I ever had. It was pretty underwhelming. So for the hot chocolate itself, it wasn't worth it, but for the sign and the experience, it was pretty worth it. And in the line, we got to talking with some other Seahawks fans that were there, and we were just talking about like the season, and they said that like this was a season where they didn't really expect much, and they just expected it to be a rebuilding season for the Seahawks, and like they didn't really expect a Super Bowl, so it was pretty cool to talk with one of them. And we also talked to a different person who was like, uh, you were talking about Seahawks players who might be leaving, and I mentioned that Kenneth Walker, who was the Super Bowl MVP, if you didn't know, was like his rookie deal was ending this year, and he said that he wasn't that worried and that we would just franchise tag him. So, yeah, that was some pretty interesting conversation. Uh, so yeah, we got our hot chocolate, and then we went up into the like parade crowd, and still there weren't that many people. Like most places, there was like a solid line of people, like one person thick. Uh, but we found like a little place by like a street where there weren't any people, and like since there was like a little street opening and there were no buildings to block like the wind and stuff like that, it was pretty cold there, which I assume is why nobody was already standing there. But yeah, we got like front row seats, I guess you might say, except for there were no seats, we were just standing there. And yeah, and then after that, uh, it was just a lot of waiting for the parade to begin. Uh, uh, we, uh, we didn't really talk to a lot of people on the line. I took some pictures. We talked to like one or two people, and then when the trophy presentation ceremony happened, which happens in Lumen Field, uh, but you need tickets for it, unlike the parade, and there's a really small capacity, so not everyone was able to go, and we were able to get tickets. So when the trophy presentation ceremony happened in Lumen Field, we listened to it on like the radio, I think it was. Uh, and Sam Darnold talked, and a bunch of other people, and then the parade began, and uh, we were like in the middle of the parade route, so it took like the parade was moving pretty slow, so it took like an hour from when the parade like technically started to when it actually got to us. But when it got to us, it was pretty cool. Uh, at first there was just a bunch of like army cars, and then we actually got to see a bunch of players. There were like a whole bunch of cars in this line, but only a few of them had like people like that were actually like coaches or players. So like Mike McDonald was there, and so was uh a bunch all the players actually. But like something really interesting that happened was that Devin Witherspoon and uh JSN got off the bus, and they like started high-fiving the crowds, and I got a high five Devin Witherspoon, so that was pretty cool. And yeah, it wasn't like nothing really too interesting happened. Like they didn't like come down and start talking to me like, "Hey kid, you want to join the team?" Uh, but they did like shoot off a bunch of confetti, so it was pretty cool. And something kind of interesting that happened was one of the buses that was carrying the players fell behind. I guess it was moving too slowly. So then when it reached us, it started speeding up. So, and this was one of the buses that actually had players on it and we actually cared about. So we only got to see them for like a little bit compared to the rest of the people because they were trying to catch up with the rest of the buses because they were moving so slow. So that was pretty interesting that happened, and we were kind of mad about that because like you spent all that time back there just moving slowly with them, and then instead of moving like as slow as you were moving before, or even like at a normal pace for the rest of these buses. You like sped up, we thought that was kind of unfair. But then the parade ended, and uh, after that it was like lunchtime, so we went down and uh, we went to a place called Ivers, I think it was, and there they had like seafood and like chicken, and there was a long line for the place because a bunch of other people in the parade that went to the parade had the same idea as us to get food afterwards. So we had to wait a little while to get our food, but honestly, it was worth it. Well, honestly, it wasn't worth it because the food was trash, at least what I had, which I guess I probably should have gotten chicken wings at a seafood place, but it is what it is. And after having lunch, we went back to catch the train that we rode on. And remember how I said that there wasn't a very long line for it, and we got on it like pretty much immediately when we were going down to Seattle? Yeah, that didn't happen this time. There was a like really long line to get it, and like for some reason like it came there were like two lines, like one came one way and one came a different way. So that was really weird. Like instead of having one line, there were two lines that kind of converged, and we had to wait for like three trains to come to finally get on the train. And also a bunch of like people were trying to cut in line, and it was really infuriating that these people were just trying to cut. And there was like one girl that like pushed right past me and was like pushed right past me and was like, "Oh, I just got out of school and I have to go to work. Let me through." And honestly, thinking back on it, I probably should have stopped her and been like, "Oh, go back to the back of the line." But I didn't really want to, so like I just let her go. Didn't really do anything, and yeah, eventually we got onto a train, and like the train like seemed to be like much slower than it was going up. Like going up to Seattle, I was like expecting it to be like a long ride, but it actually went really quickly. But then going back, it was like I I'm pretty sure it was like the same length or about the same length, but it felt much longer. And then we finally got back to the train station, and then we drove the rest of the way back to my house. And by the time we got back, was about was almost 6. So like the whole journey was uh more than 12 hours long, from when I left my house to when I got back. But honestly, it was really worth it. Uh, Getting to see all of these players, and then getting to high five one of them, getting this sign that's really cool. And so, yeah, if you have a chance to go to a Super Bowl parade and you're the kind of person who enjoys football and is patient enough to wait a while for something, because there was a lot of waiting, like waiting for the parade to begin, waiting in line to get back on the train, waiting on the train uh, for it to get back to our stop. So if you're a patient person that enjoys football and there's a Super Bowl parade around you, I would definitely recommend going to it. And so that was my experience with the Super Bowl parade. And before we end this video, one last thing is that we found out that Cooper Kupp, the Seahawks #2 receiver, was doing an autograph signing in like Tacoma, and we wanted to go, but like really it wasn't really feasible uh because we were taking the bus back, we were taking the train back, so we would have had to go back to our house and then drive up to Tacoma, and we knew that was gonna be a really packed event, so we would have to be there like hours before to even have an opportunity to do it, and so we weren't able to do that. And anyways, with how long the train line was, by the time we got back, like the event had already begun, so it just really wasn't feasible, which it would have been cool to do, but it wasn't really feasible, like I said before. So that was my experience going on the Super Bowl parade. Definitely would recommend, like I said before, and that's all for me for now. Please like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you're new.